As the MonsterVerse continues to expand, the lore and timeline of this universe have gotten very complicated and very convoluted. This has resulted in a lot of fan canon being spread as absolute canon, adding to the chaos. In this series, we'll continue to break down the lore of the MonsterVerse as it was intended. For now, we are only looking at absolute canon. That means the films themselves. That's right, no novelizations, no comics, no TV shows, just the films, and for today, we are only looking at Godzilla 2014. Special features will be considered to support these discussions while keeping in mind their limited relevance. In order to build the proper MonsterVerse timeline, I've paused and read every single piece of paper, every bit of redacted text in the credits, every single bit of screen data presented in the films, and put them in timeline order. Previously in this Godzilla 2014 lore breakdown series, we've covered the original origins of the Titans, the history of Godzilla's species, the foundation of Monarch, and gone all the way up until 2014, where Godzilla and the MUTOs made themselves public. Today we're jumping into the Battle of San Francisco, and oh boy is this one a doozy, because it's finally time to lay to bed some of the most debated topics in the Godzilla fanbase. That's right, it is time to finally lay to bed all the misconceptions surrounding Godzilla 2014's strengths, his weaknesses, the novelization, the original script, and what of it is relevant to the final version of the movie. Let's jump into Godzilla 2014 one last time. The military recovers the nuke and brings it to San Francisco Bay, hoping to lure the three kaiju 20 miles offshore using it. This seems to determine that all three kaiju will converge in San Francisco. The evacuation notice is given as residents in California seem to be aware that the monsters are on their way. Most of the people in San Francisco are escorted across the Golden Gate Bridge toward Oakland in a pretty unified and controlled government response. The Tactical Operation Command Center is established in Oakland, California, across the San Francisco Bay. The male MUTo is discovered 30 miles away, heading toward the city. The Battle of San Francisco then begins. After disappearing for 5 hours, Godzilla appears at the Golden Gate Bridge. It seems Godzilla stops to examine the naval blockade at sea only for them to open fire on him. Godzilla seems generally unfazed by the fire and acts more curious until he is provoked by repeated attacks to his gills, his original weakness, and bursts through the bridge to get away from the gunfire and to get to the female MUTo who lands in San Francisco. Godzilla seems to submerge again as the male MUTo arrives in the bay, dive bombing the transport ships and stealing the nuke. The male MUTo delivers the bomb to the female, and the two MUTos mate in Chinatown, with the female MUTo transforming the area into her nest. Through this, Monarch's only advice, spoken by Dr. Serizawa,
let them fight.
A phrase so awesome it would later serve as inspiration for them, and so reckless and irresponsible it would also haunt them forever. Defending the nest, the male MUTo confronts Godzilla as he makes landfall. Their battle rages on for a few hours, taking us to sunset. Civilians stuck in the city are evacuated to subway systems to avoid the streets. The military employs a halo jump in order to avoid the MUTO's EMP and get soldiers on the ground to extract or defuse the nuke before its timer goes off. After laying a few thousand eggs, the female MUTo is then attacked by Godzilla. As they fight, the soldiers take the nuke from the nest towards the pier in order to get it out of the city before it detonates. Godzilla loses his 1v2 match against the MUTOs, with the MUTOs utilizing their teamwork, the female MUTo's size, the male MUTo's speed, and their sharp claws to pierce Godzilla's skin, especially around the gills, causing him to bleed and even causing parts of his spines to crack. Meanwhile, Ford Brody blows up the MUTo's nest, stopping the MUTOs from potentially becoming an invasive species and distracting the MUTOs long enough to save Godzilla from getting killed. Godzilla reveals his ultimate weapon, a concentrated beam of atomic energy he can release through his mouth after charging up his nucleosynthetic glands in his throat through his dorsal fins. This attack proves powerful, but can't seem to penetrate or burn the MUTOs from the outside. Godzilla's atomic breath acts more like a plasma or a liquid in this film than it does in later appearances. However, I want to take this time to clear up another fan misconception. Nothing in the movie Godzilla 2014 indicates the MUTO's EMP weakened Godzilla in any way. The fanbase has spread wild misinformation about this, taken out of context from supplementary material, such as earlier drafts of the script or the novelization, to explain Godzilla's weaker state in 2014. The truth is, these Godzilla fans often don't want to confront the fact that Godzilla is at his baseline strength truth here. If we want to regard the novelization, then let's do so. The novelization states that if the MUTOs activate their EMP on Godzilla, it stops the triggering mechanism in his throat from sparking his atomic breath. There is no beam released. It's not that Godzilla's beam is weakened, it's that it's literally turned off. Godzilla's strength, however, remains the exact same. Conversations power scaling Godzilla 2014 are so frustratingly misinformed. We simply cannot use earlier versions of the story to justify the final version of the film. And it's okay to admit that the intentions in Godzilla 2014 are very different than the intentions in the sequels. It's no secret that Michael Dougherty made Godzilla much stronger in Godzilla King of the Monsters than he was in 2014, to a degree to where in some ways he's almost unrecognizable to his 2014 portrayal. Whenever I break down the lore of Godzilla King of the Monsters, I'll get into all of that and how it actually does make sense within the story, but for now let's just address the elephant in the room. Early versions of the Godzilla 2014 script and the novelization cannot be taken as canon or shouldn't be factored into the discussion at all. Early versions of the Godzilla 2014 script are wildly different from the final film. Almost every single character has a different name and relationship to each other. Ford and Elle are siblings, for instance, and Joe doesn't die during the MUTo hatch. Godzilla atomic breaths the Hawk MUTo in Hawaii and leaves it for dead, just allowing it to lay there. This gives it time to cocoon and metamorphose into its final form, which actually features 4 sets of wings that Godzilla tears off progressively over the course of the final battle. Godzilla kills the Hawk MUTo by crushing its head in his mouth, and he decapitates the female MUTo with his claws rather than with the kiss of death. The novelization actually follows lots of these beats, just with the reworked character relationships and names. This includes describing the female MUTo as a shelled creature and the Hawk MUTo with 4 wings. As for Godzilla's strengths and atomic breath, well, in early versions of the script, Godzilla is injured by the military on the Golden Gate Bridge, much like Godzilla 1998, and once again as he enters San Francisco Bay. He's actually fully held back from joining the final battle by the Navy on Alcatraz Island, injuring him severely. The novelization doubles down on this, having the military units blast chunks of Godzilla apart. In the novelization, once Godzilla bursts through the Golden Gate Bridge, jets fire down upon him, doing massive damage, including shattering parts of his spines. In the script, Godzilla then gets much more injured by the MUTOs during the final battle. In the novelization, Godzilla has one of his back spines completely shattered off by the MUTOs, causing it to rain down on the streets, creating massive damage for the soldiers to avoid. In the script and novelization, Godzilla unleashes his atomic breath on the female MUTo much earlier and is intercepted by the male MUTo. This moment actually does make it into the final film, but rather than Godzilla having the atomic breath be the thing that knocks the female MUTo down, it's his size and weight, and before Godzilla can unleash his atomic breath, the male MUTo joins the battle, pulling him away. This was actually part of Gareth Edwards' attempts to add suspense towards the atomic breath buildup and reveal. Rather than swinging around and pulling Godzilla away from the female MUTo, in both the script and novelization, the male MUTo activates his EMP by clicking together his back wings. In both versions of the story, this cancels Godzilla's atomic breath altogether. Slightly later, the female MUTo magnetizes herself, which is another ability she has that spins off from her much more powerful EMP than the Hawk MUTo has. This continues to cancel Godzilla's atomic breath. In both versions of the story, the atomic breath failing causes smoke to fill Godzilla's lungs, and it causes him to choke on his own energy. He almost passes out from this. A spark of atomic energy then ignites in Godzilla's tummy and burns his insides, injuring him even worse. Blood and atomic energy start to seep from Godzilla's mouth after this happens. The MUTOs also reopen the wounds Godzilla suffered from the military, as they take advantage of just how much more weak he is in both of these versions of the story. Also, in the script, Serizawa fears that if Godzilla remains on land long enough in combat, he will go into meltdown and die. In fact, Godzilla can only remain on land for brief periods of time in the script. Please note, none of this makes it into the final film because none of it is relevant towards the final draft. The designs of the monsters, origins of them, and power sets for these creatures were all reworked by Gareth Edwards, including making Godzilla much stronger than he was in the script, while still limiting his strengths and abilities to add more suspense to the final battle. One of these limitations that is kept from the script is the atomic breath wearing Godzilla out. It's hard for Godzilla to use the atomic breath, and it makes him exhausted after firing it. Godzilla simply cannot spam the atomic breath in the 2014 movie. I would like to reiterate, there has been no statements made in canon to justify the idea that Godzilla's beam is weakened in this film. It's fact, because it isn't, and neither is he. The Godzilla who appears in this film is at his full base strength. Not only does Godzilla's atomic breath appear weaker in this film, but so does Godzilla. Godzilla surfaces for the first time since 1954 after burrowing deep into the earth to soak up radiation, meaning he is well fed and ready to go. If you're wondering where Godzilla burrowed to soak up this radiation, just wait, because Godzilla King of the Monsters will tell you. Some fans argue that Godzilla coming out of hibernation means he's off his game somehow, but there's absolutely no evidence to suggest this in both the movie, or the script for that matter, or the novelization. In fact, there's nothing in subsequent films to suggest this either. This is pure cope from the fan base. The truth is, Godzilla in 2014 would be even more well nourished from his long hibernation and should be at his peak base strength and performance here, as opposed to later movies where he's coming off the back of a much shorter hibernation. As for the atomic breath being weakened by the EMPs in the film, that's not how the EMPs work, not even in the early versions of the script or the novelization. As I've already stated, in the novelization and early script, the EMPs simply turn off Godzilla's atomic breath rather than weakening it. Not only that, but it's important to note the EMPs don't last a lifetime. We see multiple bits of technology being turned on after the EMPs go off. From the GPS signals to flashlights, this is actually a key point in the early script that they can turn on the flashlights, but they have to actually turn them on a couple times after the EMP goes off. We later see in the movie Godzilla 2014, Ford is able to start up the fishing boat despite the fact that the EMP should theoretically still be active. It's just a matter of reflipping the engines or switches to get the things to turn back on. When the MUTOs officially die, all of the power comes back on. But that means Godzilla is able to use his atomic breath. It would only be if when he's using the atomic breath or charging it up, at the same time a MUTO activates a new EMP, that it has any impact on his atomic breath. Otherwise, even in the script and novelization, Godzilla's free to use the atomic breath whenever he wants. It's just when he's charging up, at the same time he's hit with a new EMP, that it has any impact. So please, as a fan base, let's finally lay this to bed. Godzilla's not weakened in the 2014 movie. The EMP has absolutely no impact on the atomic breath or Godzilla, and he is at his base peak strength in the 2014 film. No power-ups or evolutions. This is simply Godzilla as strong as he's meant to be. Blaming the soldiers for the deaths of her babies, the female MUTO tracks the nuke to the pier where she engages in battle against them. Meanwhile, Godzilla kills the male MUTO with a tail strike into a building. Not only does this battle tire him out to the point where he needs to stop to catch his breath, but Godzilla is then nearly knocked out as the building that the male MUTO was killed upon collapses on him, crushing Godzilla under its weight. Godzilla is in fact so injured by this that he can barely move as he makes eye contact with Ford Brody while being crushed under the building. There seems to be the light of acknowledgement and understanding in Godzilla's tiny yellow eyes as he looks at Ford, a hint to his deeper connection to humanity. It's also important to note here that while it seems the MUTOs can knock out electrical grids with their EMPs, it is repeatedly displayed, from Janjira all the way to Ford's Broat in the San Francisco Bay, that any device can be reactivated under the MUTO's effect and have full functioning as long as it's turned on again after the EMP hits. The female MUTO is then killed by Godzilla while confronting Ford as Godzilla unleashes his atomic breath down her throat, burning off her head from the inside out in a move later called the Kiss of Death. Godzilla leaves the male MUTO corpse crushed under a building and the female MUTO's corpse decapitated in San Francisco Bay, where he also drops her severed head. The aftermath of the Battle of San Francisco. Godzilla, weakened from this fight, collapses in the city and takes many hours to recover. Ford sends the nuke out to sea. He is recovered by a rescue team and the nuke explodes about 20 miles from the shoreline. For the record, the 20 miles estimation is what the military was aiming for in the first place, meaning the plan was actually carried out fairly well. While we don't know the size of the nuke they used, we are told both in Godzilla 2014 and in the special features for the film that fallout to San Francisco was negligible, and the city did not suffer any radioactive fallout. However, we see the nuke sitting on the ship before Ford is picked up. There is 5 minutes and 23 seconds before the explosion from the time he reaches the Golden Gate Bridge, where he's extracted. From here, the ship travels 20 miles out to sea, meaning the boat was traveling 240 miles per hour, which is quite a major speed boost for a boat that most likely couldn't even reach 70 miles an hour. Is this lore accurately the fastest fishing boat ever made, or is this a silly continuity error? That's up for you to decide, but as far as I'm concerned, that is the fastest fishing boat in the MonsterVerse. In the early hours of the morning, thousands of people lay dead or dying. Thousands more are missing. Godzilla lays unconscious in the middle of the city, appearing dead, as he doesn't seem to be breathing. Rescue workers flood the city to start cleaning rubble and look for missing survivors. A massive FEMA camp is set up in a local stadium, which appears to be San Francisco's Oracle Park. It more accurately looks like Levi Stadium. It was actually filmed in Vancouver. Levi Stadium is far south of San Francisco and would be the safer option. But Oracle Park actually makes the most sense based on the story and how fast Elle gets there after being discovered. Ford Brody retrieves Sam and heads to the FEMA camp in the stadium to look for Elle. Dozens of missing posters line the walls as people search for their loved ones. The news broadcasts footage of Godzilla to the world, while also reporting on the thousands of people that have gone missing. Elle Brody is discovered alive in the remains of the city and reunites with Ford and Sam while Dr. Serizawa and Dr. Graham watch Godzilla reawaken and head to see the triumphant victor of this battle. The public questions if Godzilla is a savior, with many clapping for him as the news dubs him the king of the monsters. The report identifies the attacking creatures as the MUTOs, and while specifying what the acronym stands for, this is how the public will come to know them. Godzilla roars in victory, unimpeded by the military, and returns to San Francisco Bay, a potential hero, where he swims out into the ocean, passing the Golden Gate Bridge, heading the same direction the nuke exploded in, diving back into the depths, into the unknown. The public begins connecting the dots, realizing that the MUTOs could be tracked back to Janjira, and that they have been covering up the MUTOs ever since 1999. The public begins to fear that more monsters are out there in the world. Fear of radioactive fallout in the San Francisco Bay Area spike following the nuclear blast. The term MUTO is made public. People then begin connecting dots to Monarch. They realize that this is the same organization involved in the Castle Bravo tests, and that it still exists to this day. However, the public does not know who is behind Monarch or what they do. The only thing that they know is that they can connect Dr. Serizawa to this organization. The final bit of lore revealed in Godzilla 2014 is that the public begin to worry that more MUTOs are being hidden, with others fearing that continued nuclear proliferation will awaken more monsters at some point in the future. And that is our Godzilla 2014 lore. Oh my god. And I'm supposed to build an entire timeline out of this stuff? MonsterVerse is about to get a whole lot more complicated. Thank you guys so much for supporting this video. This took an incredible amount of work. I really want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I am able to continue to make videos like this for you in the first place. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.